For over a century, the Empress Hotel has been a symbol of elegance in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Guests come for afternoon tea, panoramic views, and a touch of historic Edwardian grandeur. But for decades, another story has been told. A ghostly tale of a maid who fell to her death and still wanders the hotel's halls and gardens. In the early 1900s, Victoria was a growing colonial city shaped by British influence and Pacific trade. Streetcars carried residents across town and immigrants arrived seeking work and opportunity. In 1907, the Empress was under construction across from the legislature and the harbor. When it opened in 1908, the Empress Hotel quickly became a jewel of the coast. It symbolized modernity and wealth. But behind the luxury was a working-class labor force that kept it running. Maids served guests in the elegant dining rooms and many more worked in the laundries and kitchens.
I hope you like to work. There's plenty of it here.
Hard work keeps you out of mischief.
What kind of mischief could you get into?
Having 6 or 7 gentlemen friends after me all at the same time fighting over me. That's enough mischief for anybody, isn't it?
Clean the sink. That'll keep you busy for a while.
But domestic service was often physically demanding and sometimes dangerous work. By 1910, the Empress was so successful that it was expanding by adding another wing. At that time, Elizabeth McGrath, or Lizzie, was working there as a serving maid. Ghost stories would describe her as a young Irish immigrant clutching rosary beads, falling 6 stories to instant death. But historical records tell a different story. On July 11, 1910, staff found Lizzie lying horribly injured on the 5th floor of the new adjoining part of the hotel. Contrary to the popular legend, she did not fall 6 stories to her death in the gardens below. Contemporary records say she fell a much shorter distance, 1 floor, about 11 feet, and survived the initial accident. Lizzie stepped out on the 6th floor fire escape, unaware that it had just been removed for construction of the new wing. She was holding her reading glasses at the time she was found, no rosary beads. She was rushed to nearby St. Joseph's Hospital, where she was treated for a compound leg fracture and internal injuries. But sadly, Lizzie died from those injuries 2 weeks later. News reports and the coroner's inquest reveal no dramatic plunge and no instant death. Instead, they document a workplace accident in an era before modern safety standards. Her doctor said the cause of death was a ruptured kidney, damaged from her fall, and that she only had one of them. Inquest witnesses said Lizzie was age 50, had not been in strong health prior to the accident, and had back pain. The inquest found the contractor at fault for removing the fire escape without alerting hotel management. A tragedy, but not from a broken heart or suicide. These archival records and news reports also show the true identity of the real Lizzie McGrath. Working back from the data in her death certificate leads to a paper trail that reveals a life of travel, love and loss. She was born Elizabeth Buchanan in Nova Scotia in 1860 to parents with Irish Catholic ancestry. By 1893, she had emigrated to Boston, Massachusetts, where she worked as a dressmaker. She was 31 when she married Luke McGrath in Boston's Holy Cross Cathedral. He was a mariner, also from Nova Scotia. Luke had already been working in Victoria, BC prior to the wedding. Their marriage was noted in the Victoria News and their names were listed in the city directory the following year. They lived just a few blocks from the Empress Hotel. They seemed well settled in Victoria over the next few years. Then, Luke became captain of a steamboat, the Manzanillo, carrying mail to Mexican ports. A 1899 auction notice at their address lists items typical of a comfortable late Victorian household. An upright grand piano, carved oak furniture and a feather bed. She was clearly disposing of their Victoria belongings to join Luke, as a news item the next month confirmed. Records show she was with him when he tragically died in Mazatlan in July, 1900. The Mexican death certificate and Canadian news reported that he had a fever from typhoid or malaria. He was just 39. Luke had survived more than one serious boating accident over the years per newspapers. Once, he landed on a whale. But in the end, it wasn't an accident that killed him, but disease. Lizzie caught the same illness, but a milder case. She sadly had to have her husband buried in Mazatlan. She then returned to Victoria and started a new phase of life independently. Lizzie was listed in the 1901 census as a boarding housekeeper in Victoria. Luke's name appears posthumously on the next line like a ghost, despite Lizzie correctly noted as a widow. She was in the city directory as a serving maid for the Empress Hotel in 1909, the year after it opened. Many staff lived on the 6th floor where Lizzie's room was at the very end of that hallway from which she fell. Her obituary and other news about her accident and death said her family was back east except for a brother-in-law. She had no children, according to records, and her probate lists 2 surviving siblings, in Nova Scotia, as her beneficiaries. Lizzie's funeral was held at St. Andrew's Cathedral and burial at Ross Bay Cemetery in an unmarked grave. Over the decades, Lizzie's death was transformed into local folklore. Stories grew more dramatic: a fatal plunge, a tragic young maid, a restless spirit haunting the hotel halls, and the garden area where she supposedly landed, but didn't. Such tales are common in historic hotels, where mystery enhances tourism and guest experience. But in this case, it obscured Lizzie's real story, which in many ways is more interesting than the myth. Today, the Ghost Maid remains part of the Empress Hotel's identity. Whether paranormal or psychological, the story persists, blending history, imagination and fascination with the unknown. By uncovering the facts, we honor Lizzie not just as a ghost, but as a person. But if her ghost does still haunt the Empress, hopefully her spirit rests easier with these parts of her real life unburied.